whatever we discussed was the initial setup that is required for us to cover the recruiting marketing. And at the same time, we also talked about the command center, the other prerequisites that are required for us to go ahead. And while we were discussing about it, we also understood the linkage between the recruiting marketing and the recruiting management, so that we are going to see and understand the different aspects of the integration and a few other various topics, right? So we are going to proceed further with the other configuration steps today to connect the recruiting marketing with the recruiting management. Okay, and also understand the command center setup. So when we talk about the command center setup, we are referring to the setup with respect to the type of credentials that we are going to use. And we will also talk about the provisioning system in which we have to make sure we see that, right? So that these are the few things that we are going to talk about. But before that, I would like to just go through a couple of commonly asked questions in the certification and commonly asked things in the system and everything. So it will be easy for us to go ahead. Okay. Now, so far, whatever we have seen, right? Can anyone tell about the career site builder? Is it possible for us to link two career sites with one instance of recruiting management? Is that possible? So there is one company and which has two different career sites altogether. Okay, so now they wanted to link them with the same site, same instance. Is that possible?
No, I think.
Yeah, that's correct. Because, why I'm asking this question is there are few customers who will ask the same question. So they wanted to understand that, is it possible or not? Because they might have some group companies and they want to, post all the jobs in the same career site. So how it works is based on the design, it is always one-to-one. One site is linked with one instance. But if they want to go ahead and create any sub-site, that is definitely possible, which we will see it in a concept called as brand management, okay, where you can create your own names for the different brands and you can proceed further. Okay, so that is one thing which is also available. Now, other question to ask, is Employee Central mandatory for us to implement recruiting and onboarding?
No.
Okay, actually, no. When you're using the onboarding module, you might know that the new version which comes up with is always having the MDF, all the HRIS elements configured over there. So hence, it's kind of mandatory for us. But if you don't have Employee Central, you can still go with onboarding, but you need recruitment for sure in order to go ahead and use the onboarding effectively. But yeah, this question has partially two answers. So that's how it is. Okay, couple of other things in the career site builder, which so far whatever we spoke about. Okay, so we understood that as a consultant, we need to apply for access and we can get it, right? So can I have more than two test systems in one particular career site, or is just one test system? Is it always one test and one production, or can I have multiple as well?
One test and one prod only.
Yeah, that is correct. Okay, this is clear. So basically, you have almost got the concepts clear, I would say. And at the same time, understand the configuration with respect to the command center and the provisioning. All right. So I'm now starting my screen share. All right. So just to go ahead once again, we log in as with our S user, which we will click on it. Although this command center is one of the test system that I'm using, it's created and requested for this particular training, which is linked with some other test user, S user. But just to talk in an ideal scenario, this will be linked with our own S user ID when we are working on this. So if we have multiple customers, it will be listed here. If we just have one, it will be only one. Okay. We click on this and navigate to career site builder in order for us to build the initial connections. Okay. So there are two things which I always mentioned. One is under settings and under site configuration. Okay. So which will show you the basic information, which is the site name, company name, and everything. So right now you're seeing the site name here, which is given as SFCPART, and company name is like this. But you can remove this company name and put the actual client name. Okay, so if you're working with Pepsi, we put it as Pepsi, or if we work with HP, like whatever is the company, we put it like this. So we now can put it as a training, because it's just the company. We are doing the training and we will be using it for the testing purposes. So this URL, we are going to update it later, because usually when we are working with the demo instance, that is from the production data center. Okay, it's not the test data center. So we will have to do certain process in order for us to make this site live. Okay, so that we will keep it to it later. So anything else that we need to update here in the page title? Okay, so you have to mention the name on how it should look like. All right. So if I just open one of the sites. Now, this is Vodafone career site. All right. So whatever you see here, this is called as the page title, which is coming from here. Okay. So you put jobs at the customer name or the customer name followed by jobs. So this is going to come up here. Okay. So we can see a couple of other sites as well. Okay. So you see Pandora Careers. So this is the site name. When you're working on the test system, usually it will not be like visible over there. So for example, this one. So it's just given as this name. Okay. So they have not changed the name, but some customers are very specific to ask you about how do we change this particular name. So you can go ahead and change it. So, and they can update it to whatever they want. Okay. So for example, now we're working with this particular customer. We say jobs at Cock. So this is the client name. So we work with some other customers. We can call them as, like whatever they want as the name. So here they're saying careers at ADNOC Group and some more details over here. Okay, ADNOC Group jobs. So how will this help us? Okay, this will also help us in the search engine optimization. For example, like we discussed, we have an inbuilt feature of search engine optimization. So first of all, let's understand what is this all about. Whenever you're working with any of the websites or which is a content to be displayed to the external world, it might be candidates, it might be users like you and me, it might be for anything else. So some of the sites are built with some meta words. Okay, so the term is called as meta words because these words will help us to actually in the top. So depending upon the content it has and depending upon the features that it has. So one such feature is called as search engine optimization, where you're going to optimize the search in such a way that you are going to get the results in the very top. Okay. So few customers will, whoever is going to use RMK, the recruiting marketing career site, this feature comes by default. So you don't have to enable anything, but you just have one option to enhance that from here, which is called as meta keywords. Now let's assume that if the customer says they are from the marketing background or if they are from the web designing background, so they will come up and ask you some questions like, can I make my site to be visible on the top? Like, is there any feature that I can enhance it? So yeah, you can tell them that SuccessFactors Recruiting Marketing comes by default with the meta keywords, and it is also search engine optimized, which means your site is always in the top. But in order to enhance that, I can do this feature where I can put it like this, jobs at, for example, if you're working for Pandora. Okay, so we make it like this and we give it and we try to differentiate. Okay, so like this. And then marketing jobs. If this customer is posting a lot of marketing jobs, they can do this. And then they can also put it as sales jobs. So these keywords that you're going to enter here will matter in terms of the search results in Google or ask.com or msn.com, wherever, whichever search engine that people are using. If they search with this jobs, this exact keyword, so then you're going to for sure get the result of the customer site. So these are the few things that we will tell them. It's just not a site where we develop, put colors, put images. It is also more to it, where it is search engine optimized by default. And it's also making sure to give you the proper information about the traffic of the candidates. I mean, to understand from where are they coming from. And you'll also be able to update the site content very easily. So these are the few unique points that we can mention during the requirement gathering and also our demos. Okay. So again, the meta description is not required. So it is just an option that you can give, but you can just ignore it. So these are the few things that we need to concentrate on this particular page. Okay. So I will just save it before we proceed further with the next page. So next we have the site integrations, which we talked about it already last week on a high level. So first thing, the company ID is nothing but the company ID that we also see here. All right. So show version information. This is the company ID, the customer's unique instance ID. It should always be the same so that you're also sure that you're working on the correct site. Okay. So this is not required. An subdomain is not required. So this is the data center that we are going to connect it with. So in the customer scenario, if you're talking about various data centers, so you have to make sure you connect with the right data centers. So we also saw ABA centers, success factors. All right. So we just go to that link once again. So it is going to show you a lot of data centers which should be linked accordingly. So if I'm new and if I don't want to, make a mistake, I should come to this particular table, which shows me the exact data center. Okay. So why I'm showing you this is because to understand the different data centers that we have. Okay. So now here, let's take an example. DC70 is the number. So this is how the URL looks like. Okay. The production one. And the preview one looks like this. So now SAP has changed some of the data centers naming convention. So earlier it was like this, Performance Manager SuccessFactors.eu. Now they have changed it to HCM EU10. But end of the day, the number is 57. So this is unique. So similarly, you're working on any other data center, for example, 41, which is in the US. So the old URL was like this, and the new URL is going to look like this. But end of the day, the number is this one. So when you're linking up with the command center, the career site builder, so you have to select it properly. Okay. So this matters a lot. Otherwise, you're going to link it with some other instance, which is not going to work, and then it would create an issue. Okay. So that is the deployment data center. Now here is where we have multiple questions. So some of the customers will have 3 instances for the success factors: test, development, and production. So for RMK, the recruiting marketing career side, they're going to only have 2. So they always have this question: can I link my test system to the test data center in the beginning? And later, when I'm migrating it to development, then can I remove the connection between test and link it to development? So is that possible, first of all? So the first part of it is possible. But the second part is you have to link with the correct company ID. So what you are going to do is remove the company ID, put the company ID of development, and put the relevant data center and build the connection. So what happens is, going forward, whatever jobs that you're going to post with this particular new company ID that you have put, it will be posted over there. Okay. So you have to inform them that whatever the jobs that were available earlier in the test system site, that will now be kind of refreshed and deleted because we are connecting with a new instance. So these are the few things that we need to mention when we are trying to configure this. But apart from that, it's straightforward. You have to select the right data center and save the details. And single sign-on security key, like we saw in the provisioning system. So how do we navigate? We go to the first page and we access the company settings. So once we access the company settings, we have the recruiting marketing settings and the URL. Okay. We're going to go there and access the security key. So I click on the instance from the provisioning and I search for marketing. So there are 2 options only. So I go to the recruiting marketing settings. Okay. And this is where I'm going to put the security key that I generated over here. Okay. So this can be alphanumeric with special characters, whatever it is recommended to have more than 18 to 20 characters all put together because it is going to be unique. And this should not be shared with anyone because there is a chance of updating it incorrectly. Hence, you will be seeing the security key here only. And when you actually go to this provisioning site, after you save, it is kind of disappeared. Okay, so that's an expected behavior. Now, once you're done with this, the recruiter sync button should always be on. And for now, you can keep it as for whatever time it is, but it is going to run on every specific time. So what I'll do is just put it as, 6 a.m. maybe. Okay, and run it. So every day, 6 a.m., it is going to update. And if I click on execute now, it's going to pull all the details from recruiting marketing to just give the permissions if you have added them. All right. So this is one of the options that we are going to do. Second is tools and API credentials. Okay. So you saw that last time when we saw this, we didn't have an option here. We had clicked on add provider, right? So now what we have done is we already have one. We have created it. So this is the provider name, which we have to put it here in this place, going back and recruiting marketing data center URL. Okay, so for first you generate this API key and you put the API key over here. Okay, so this is the API key. So if you see the last characters are 00, I'm doing this, and this is also 00. This cannot be changed. If you want to create a new one, you have to create from the beginning altogether. So second thing is the provider name. So they are saying that you can consider putting your site ID, okay, in this particular provider name. It's just to identify which, if we are entering the correct one, because we are going to do the same activity once again in the production system. Hence, it is important for us to include the site ID here. So where do I find the site ID? From the beginning, where we go to the site configuration. Okay, so second one is the username. So here they're also saying that consider using the combination of company name and the site ID. So you can put a couple of characters from the company name and the site ID again. Okay, so this is recommended, but it doesn't stop you to use anything else as well. If the customer decides to have only specific thing, once you hand it over, if you are going to explain them, if they're going to ask you, what is this? So you're telling them, this is the details that are required for us to update it in the backend. So hence, do not touch these two places. Manage API credentials and also site configuration. Okay, so to be in a safer side. If one of this kind of connection is going to break, then the linkage between two modules is going to break permanently. So hence it is important for us to mention it very clearly from the beginning. Okay, we are done with the username. We put the username here again. Okay, without spaces, everything should be the same. So next is the password. So this password is generated by the system. You can regenerate, you can, change it whatever you want, but once it's saved in the backend provisioning, it's not recommended to change at all, because if the password is changed, then you're going to lose the connection again. All right. So these are the things, and you have to put the recruiting management real-time job sync. Also turn it on so that it will be always working for you.
Right? Kiran, how is this password helpful?
Yeah, this password, whatever you are putting the username and the password in the system in provisioning, it is just to make sure that you have the right instance set up. That's all. So let's assume in the data center of 40 itself, you have multiple company instances. All right. So if you have them, it might be different, right? You have to link it with some other customers as well. So hence, when you're working on a specific instance ID, these few things like API name and username and password that you enter here is going to connect both the systems for posting the jobs and also for understanding the right instance.
Is it like a super admin?
Yeah, kind of super admin, yes, for RMK only. Okay. You can consider that way. But you are not going to log in with this anywhere. You're not going to use it anywhere. It is just for this purpose where you create it and you update it here in the provisioning. That's all. You don't do anything else. But, you have to inform, all your team members, whoever is working on this instance or the system, not to go to this option very frequently, because we never change it once we have updated. If you're going to change this here, we have to make sure it is the same over here as well. Okay. So this is rarely touched by anyone. So it's only during the configuration for the first time. So like we did it, we created it and saved it. That's all. Okay. So these are the couple of things that we need to do it as the initial stages. All right. Now let's move on to one other topic, which within provisioning itself. We saw that in order to configure the site, we enter this one, turn on the recruiter sync. In order to post the jobs and connect the system, we also did this one. So which means recruiting management real-time job sync. We turned it on, but we also have to work on one specific job, which is scheduled in provisioning in the backend. Okay. So for whom you are seeing it for the first time, just to identify, for every action that we do in the front end, there are certain things which are scheduled in the provisioning system. Okay. For whoever is working on EC already and have an idea about some of the scheduling of the jobs and everything, it's straightforward. But just to give you an idea, so there is something called as a job scheduler here. So how do I open that? Once we can open it and then talk about it. So there is a separate section under company settings of provisioning, so which is talking about the jobs. So what jobs are this? Okay, if I click on it, you'll get an idea. So for various options, like here, if you see, there are certain things which says create admin alert. Okay, maybe event purge. Okay, so if I want to pick up something relevant, okay, so let's go to this list. So if you observe here, there are multiple jobs which are scheduled by SAP already, which you don't have to touch. But if you want to actually run a specific job, in order for certain action to be taken place. Then you come to the screen. Otherwise, you don't do it. So with respect to recruitment management, you're not going to schedule any jobs. But with respect to recruiting marketing, you're going to schedule only one job, which is talking about the recruiting sync of all the jobs. Why do we have to do this in the first place? This is required for us to push all the jobs from the recruiting management system, from the job description, perspective. If you want to update everything into your career site, so this is required. Okay, and this is also made as a prerequisite for us in the configuration as well. So if you ask me, is it mandatory for us to do it? Otherwise, the jobs will not work. Yes, it is mandatory, and we can schedule it maybe, run once in an hour. So whenever the job is posted, it keeps updating and then it tries to push the job. But even if you don't schedule this job, there is an internal schedule that runs within SuccessFactors to update all the jobs from the recruiting management to the career site. Okay. So these things, it's very important for us to know as implementation consultants, support consultants, rather than the customer, because they should not feel like, you have two different systems and you're going to do all of this. Okay. So it's just for us internally. So we can create it and then schedule it always. All right. So when I go to monitor jobs, whatever is available and created, I can see them as a status. So is it created for certain things, like create admin alert? So this was scheduled by V4 admin, which is a super admin, and it's completed today, sometime back. Okay. So likewise, I can see all of the jobs. So now we have one job, which is sync ATS jobs with RMK system. Okay. So this is the job that we are going to talk about. So if you see this, the job type, it is never scheduled at all, because in this instance, in this customer's instance, so nobody worked on it yet. Okay. So it's just the first time. So hence we don't see this particular job running. So in order for us to create it and set it up, so what we'll do is go to manage schedule job, one step back, right? And you have an option called create new job. So you click on it, and remember, this is only one time activity when you're doing it for the first time. But if you are getting into the support, or if you get any support tickets, you also see that this is already, created by the implementation consultant, whoever did the configuration. Okay. So we can give a name. So you can put it as sync RCM jobs to RMK. Okay. So this might be the name, but it can be anything. But the job type will never change, right? So the job type is always same. So, but it is the name of the job can be anything. So when you talk about the job type, where it go? RMK. Okay. What was the name that we saw? Is it sync?
Sync ATS to RMK.
Yeah, sync ATS, right? Yeah. Okay. Instead, we can use this one also. Sync all jobs, all external job postings. Okay. One second. Let me just go back to one here and see the exact name. Monitor jobs. Yeah. Manage schedule jobs as a first step. Sync ATS job post with RMK system. All right. Let me pick up the same thing. If I don't have it, I will use something else. Yeah. So for some reason, it's in a different name here, but both are same. Sync all external job postings and sync ATS jobs to recruiting is the same. So you can give it as like this. Sync RCM jobs to RMK. So this is the job owner. So you can put it as the implementation consultant's name. If you're working on it, better to put your email address, like as a user. The only reason is that, you keep getting emails every 1 day or 2 days, like whenever the job is scheduled, saying that you have synced the jobs and it's successful. And if there is any failure that is going to happen, then you can also, get to know, you can understand why it is failed. So why we have to put our own email address in the initial configuration stages, because the customer will not know whether it's working properly or not. Okay. So later, once you hand over the system to them, you will inform them a couple of things, saying that there is a job that will be running in the backend to push all of your jobs. So if the customer is okay, then you can put the email address of one of the IT user. But remember, they have to be available in the system. Okay. Now I have one user, which is maybe the training user that I have scheduled. Okay. So let's see if we can pick them. And I will have to use my own user ID like this to search if I have that. As of now, I will use this, the HR admin, which is created for the training purposes. I've done this. And if you want to change it like later, you come to the same place, edit the job and put the email address. So how often do you want to create it? As this is a job sync, it should be always recurring. And my recommendation would be like you put it to daily, okay? And you select all of this. So what happens is every hour it keeps running. All right. This is one option. If you ask and understand from the customer that they don't post a lot of jobs every single day, okay, then you can put it like this. Every night at 12 a.m., it is going to run. So that once it's going to run. This is just to make sure to sync and keep everything updated. If the customer changes something in the job description, when the job runs, it is going to update the job description also in the career side. If the customer removes the posting from the posting screen, then that should also be updated in the posting screen. Just to have that sync, we are going to update this. Otherwise, like I said, it will take 15 to 20 minutes for us in the production system to post the job, okay, in the career side. In order to make sure every detail is same, so it's recommended to keep it daily, and I will always keep it to 12 a.m. so that it's easy. Nobody will be working at that particular time, and then it's like a straightforward. I'm scheduling it for 1 time. And when should this job be started? Okay, so the job start date and the end date should be entered here. So usually what we do is whenever we are trying to start the configuration, let's say today, tomorrow, we're going to put the date, and then end date will be like forever usually, because it should keep running always. Okay, so here is an option to create additional recipients. If the customer wants to notify a couple of other people, then you can create it. Or in the case of our colleagues itself, like if both of us are working on the same project and we would be notified about this, then you go ahead and add the email addresses. If not, this is completely optional. Okay, so here you have an option to say send an email when job starts, send an email when job completes. I would personally say you can use only it in the test system, or maybe when you're doing it in the initial configuration, because if you keep this forever, you keep getting emails saying that job started, job ended, job started, job ended. So which will kind of spam your inbox. So this is required by default, and hence it is grayed out. Whenever it fails, it's necessary to know. But if it's starting or if it's completed, we don't want to get notified, right? So hence we just ignore that. So I'll create the job without selecting the start date and end date. Okay. Because we have not submitted it yet. But if you want to submit it, you can always go ahead and see and edit it from here. You can edit it from here and put the date. So I've just submitted it, right? So it didn't take, it didn't ask me for the end date because it should be there forever. And this date, and that's today's, and this time is taken according to the instance time. This is according to the data center. We can always update the time zone whenever we want. Okay. So if you see here, it says based on time zone UTC. Okay. So some central time in the US. So hence it's talking about the 30 a.m. All right. So you don't have to put the end date for this job specifically. Okay. And I updated the job. So now I have just created it and, submitted it, right? So in case of scheduling it, I've just created it. If you observe here, I have not submitted it yet. What does it mean? I have to submit it to make sure it runs, right? So again, I can click on submit and click on OK. So it's saying that, it is in the past because this time is already past. So I'll put it as 5:30 a.m. and click on submit now. So now it is submitted. Is it running? It is going to run only when we as per the time that we have selected. But in order to force the system to run it now, I have an option. Click on run it now. Okay. So now the job is submitted. First of all, it's created. Step number 1. Second, it's submitted. And third, it's also running because we have forcefully clicked on it. So if I go to monitor jobs, I should see this particular job, which is running. Yeah. Sync RCM jobs to RMK. The email address is this one. Okay. And it is completed. When you click on detail, so it is going to show you what it did. So job successfully completed. Sync just finished in this time. Sync job posting is initiated and run it now is done for this particular thing. So there are certain things that we also will come across during our troubleshooting when we get some support tickets. Like we discussed always, right? Saying that, the job is not available in the career site. That is one of the common thing which people say. And it might be for various reasons wherein the job is not scheduled. The job is on oversized, like with a lot of characters, and maybe one of the field mapping is missing. And if we are ruled out with everything, then you always come here and see if the job sync is working, to make sure it is done. There are rare case scenarios in which this might fail. Okay. The reason is when SAP kind of runs the patch upgrades or, some of the updates are happening periodically, or if there is any data center change that happens, or maybe some of the issues sometimes, that is when you're going to have an issue about this job posting. Otherwise, majority of the cases, especially in the production system, you will not face this issue. Okay. Second thing is, let's say you have implemented for this customer and it's been like almost 2 years and there was some upgrade or copy done from the production instance to the test system. During that copy, maybe the job was not running in production. When it was copied over, the jobs was also copied over so that this job was stopped in the test system or vice versa. So these are a few common scenarios which might happen. Okay. So we have to inform them when such scenarios are coming into picture. So you can contact the partner or the support, whoever is helping you with the support, so that we will be able to come to the screen and check if that particular job is running or not. So with respect to recruiting marketing, this is the only job that we are going to submit. But with respect to some other modules, there are various jobs that we can submit. So hence, it is also good to know for you on how do we manage these jobs. Okay. So in terms of other particular modules, like in Employee Central, so there is a job which is called as HRIS Sync. Okay. So which will update all of the external users as the candidates to employees. Okay. There are certain jobs which is running for the workflow configuration. There are certain jobs which are running for the job information to be updated. There are like hundreds of jobs. When you click on one of the jobs, all of these pages that you see, it's continuously running. So which has been done by SAP itself. You don't have to worry about it. The one which you create are the ones which you have to monitor on a regular basis. Okay. So are we clear on this particular job sync and the initial setup between recruiting, marketing, and management? Now we shall go ahead and see a couple of documentation in which we have to understand the additional setup that is required for us in the career site builder. And we shall go to the options of the pages and, many other components that are required for us in the career site builder. For that, I have one link which is already open.
Hey, ZaranTech now offers SAP corporate training. That's right. Train your workforce in SAP with our comprehensive program. We offer customized courses, certified trainers, and hands-on labs for both individuals and businesses. Our standout features: bespoke training, fully configured servers for practice, in-house materials, and a dedicated LMS. Plus, get session recordings and 24/7 support. From functional to technical modules, we have got it all. Choose ZaranTech for SAP training and watch your team excel. Learn, upskill, succeed with ZaranTech.
Okay, so this one says career site design, leading practices. What does it mean? In order for us to take the requirements in a very successful way from the customer, so there are a few things that needs to be considered. Okay, so first of all, we would have explained in the demo saying that we can customize your site based on your colors and the themes and all of this, right? But there are certain principles that we also need to follow to make sure the site is developed and delivered in a good way. So some of them are mentioned here. So like I said, the search engine optimization is an inbuilt feature. So built-in SEO features. So it is optimized for most of the career sites like which we use it here. So this feature comes by default with SuccessFactors Recruitment. Okay, so when we are using and implementing this particular site, it comes by default. Okay, built-in SEO features is nothing but it is coming with improved SEO rankings across search results. So it is only helping us when we are searching for the results in any of the search engines like Google, .com, Ask.com, MSN, whatever. Okay. And then there are certain other things that we need to update, which is in the site. So what they're saying is automatic daily sitemap updates to Google and Bing. So just before go live in the production environment, the consultant will submit sitemaps to Google and Bing. So what does it mean? Okay. So do you have to do it manually or not? So what happens is whenever you are creating the site in the test system, you don't have to do all of this because the test system will be restricted only within the organization and the testing team and not for Google or maybe the external parties. This should be done only in the production system. But do you have to actually do it by going into certain place? You don't have to do it, because whenever the SuccessFactors system runs nightly maintenance, site maps are updated without any changes to the job collection. So whenever the job is scheduled in the backend, okay, so the details of system is going to update, and whatever jobs are posted will be actually updated. So you don't have to do a specific search for it. So it is going to be automatic. Okay, so it is configured and enabled for us from SAP itself. All right, it's just an example giving you the similar jobs here. Now we will go to the overview of the career site design. Okay, so the first thing that we saw is the site configuration. We see that we have to put the name. Okay, so here also you see that the name is given as RMK training, and the URL is rmktraining.valhalla stage, whatever. That is because of the stage system. And we have certain details, which we already talked about. So the page title in the first space, we have to update it so that it will be visible on top of it. And then some of the meta keywords, you can put it like this. Okay, now if I just zoom it, so you also see that there are some things that are entered as apply online for jobs at registrar, engineering jobs, So these are the few keywords entered for us to make sure the site is visible on the top whenever someone Googles it, or whenever they go to the search engine for any job search. All right. So this will not be a straightforward question from the customer. So it will be like they will ask you in quite slightly different ways. They might ask you that, is there any functionality where I can enable for my career site to be on the top? Or do you need to do any settings for me to actually have the visibility on any of the search platforms in the top? Okay, so this will be the questions. And then immediately it should strike your mind that if I update some of the meta keywords in the career site builder, it will help me to push the site on the top. Okay, so hence I can do this. And some of the people who will have internal marketing teams who are well versed with this coding and the site setup and everything. Okay, so they might ask you directly saying that, is there an option for us to update the meta keywords anywhere? Or is SuccessFactors Recruiting Marketing capable of accepting the meta keywords? All right, something like that. If that is a straightforward question, you know where to go. You can update it in the career site builder. So it's giving you some examples: the company name, jobs or careers, the strategic positions of the company, if they're hiring for hospitals, less doctors, nurses. You can keep the keyword so that everyone will get that updated. So this is again the same thing, site-wide metadata, which means we are putting the details of the metadata. All right, and there is another option that we have for site search engine optimization. So this we are going to see it in the CSV as well. But what it is all about is, when we go to your SEO settings, we can put certain keywords again in the space that is given for us here. Okay, so here what they're saying is, when top jobs is disabled, omit the top jobs link in the footer. If top jobs is disabled, options like terms to ignore and terms to avoid are unnecessary. Non-indexed search jobs do not affect category pages. What does it mean? So if I go to the career site builder, okay, I have an option called SEO settings in this place. Okay, so it says terms to demote, terms to avoid. Okay, so if you want to demote something, which means if someone search for some unrelated keywords, you can put it here. So which will not bring up your page. So terms to avoid, for example, for what terms your site should not come up. Okay, so if that is the case, you can put it here. But this is always a confusion. So for 90% of the customers, we are not going to use it unless if they ask it by going into this navigation and ask what does it mean. But just to give you an overview, whatever terms, if I go to Google and search for something else, if you want to avoid that one to be coming up as a search result, then you have to put that terms here. Otherwise, you can leave it as it is. You don't have to worry about it. Okay, that is one of the topic that is mentioned here in the documentation as well. Okay, the next step is the overview, like they have mentioned it here in the SEO settings. So that is all about. Okay, and then we talk about the overview of the overall career design. So how do we actually design? What are the few things that are required for us? So this is just an explanation that you are going to give it to the customer when you sit with them for the requirement gathering, when you also sit for the demo, etc. Just give me a moment. Okay, so these are the few things that we will consider when we are trying to explain it to them on how do the design work and how should we consider for making sure to build a responsive, attractive, at the same time user-friendly site for that, so that it will be easy for us to maintain once we hand it over as well. So this is about accessibility guidelines that is also given. Okay. So this details when you are discussing with the customer, it doesn't mean that, you have to follow this. It is just good to have information, which is also available in the Learning Hub and also implementation guide. But just to have that information given on what exactly happens and how you're going to explain, this is required. Okay, so it is explaining you some of the recommendations on how to do it. Okay, so in the page title, it is saying that you can use jobs at best run, jobs at the customer name, all of this. Okay, you don't have to worry about this because the career site design overview, screen reader, no, this is not relevant for us, so you can ignore this as well. Okay, so accessibility guidelines for all text in images. This is again when we are using the image upload, but this is already taken care in the career site builder configuration. So you don't have to worry about this as well. Okay, now comes to the overview of the design. All right. In the design, whatever we are going to do in terms of the system in career site builder, we should understand what is being done. Okay. And how are we going to upload the images and how are we going to, take care of the content, etc. All right. And then comes the design overall. What should the design look like? This is again, we will directly see it in the system itself instead of going through this. And couple of components overview, the map component, which is given, the Google job map. Okay. And then few other things. So instead of going through this documentation in detail, we are going to see all of this in the career site builder itself. Okay. I'll open one of the sample brand guideline document. Okay. For you to give an understanding about what do we collect from the customer and how are they going to give it to us when we talk about the configuration overview. Okay. All right. I have found one job brand guideline document, which I'm going to share it with you. All right. So this is one of the job guideline or the branding guideline, which is given from one of the customer, but it is, generic content. So we don't have to worry about it. It's also a generic document, which is shared with us when we are doing the implementation. All right. Just to give you an overview, what is the brand guideline document? So usually whenever we are talking about any website for that matter, okay. So when we go to Google and search for any of the websites, we might see certain colors and images of that website, right? So for that matter, Google itself, it is having a white background always. And whenever there is some special occasions, they keep updating the logo and things of the Google, right? So this is one thing. And when we search for any jobs in SuccessFactors, let's say there are some consulting companies which comes up in the starting, and then there will also some of the other websites which will come up in the search, right? So when we are talking about any of the website, okay, every website for that matter will have some branding guidelines. Okay, so which means the overall look and feel of that particular site. Okay, so in terms of SAP itself, if I go to SAP.com. So SAP has their own branding guidelines, which means the colors and the overall view and the images, they want to have it in a specific way. All right. And when we go to some other websites like Accenture, for example, so Accenture has their own, details of the colors and everything, the logo and everything. So in short, what I'm trying to say is every customer that we work with will have their own specific guidelines to follow. And why this is required for us is because we are dealing with the career site, which is an external facing site. So we always need to have that information with us saying that, okay, whenever we are working with the site, it should match the colors, font, and also the design of the corporate website. Because in terms of the other modules like Employee Central, Performance, and Goals, those are all internal, right? You don't have to worry about it much. But when we talk about the recruiting marketing, it is a candidate facing site. It is an external facing site. So hence, we have to collect these details from the customer. To give you an overview about the brand guideline document itself, this document will contain certain details about the images, okay, the colors, and also the logo, the font, everything. So this will be usually created by the customer, okay, from one of the marketing team, or maybe the team who will manage the design principles of the organization. Okay. So it depends on customer to customer. If you're working with a big conglomerate or maybe a big corporate company, they will have their own internal team to manage all of this. But if you're working for a mid-sized company, they might have outsourced these particular things to someone else. Okay. So that is the reason you have to get the information about what is the existing design that they want and what are the colors. Who's going to give this in the initial stage? You have to figure it out during the requirement gathering itself. Okay. So you have to give them an information about, what is the brand guideline document all about? What does it contain, so that they will have an understanding and they will share it with you. And you might get into certain situations in which the customers never know about the brand guideline itself, because you're dealing with the HR, you're dealing with the recruiter or the IT, but you never know who actually was responsible for providing the content in terms of the colors and designs and everything for their corporate site. So hence, some of the internal discussion should take place. And through IT, you will be able to figure out who is that particular team or the person handling these details. Okay. So first things first, you get this done. Once that is done, you also get into some details and show them a sample like this, like I'm doing with you, saying that
there is a predefined template for this type of documents, or is it like they make it and give it?
There is no pre-design actually. Yeah, there is no design as such, Sonali. So it is given by them. It can be created in PDFs, it can be created in Word documents, or maybe any other format. But there is no specific format that they are going to give it to you. It is generic document. Okay, so all that you need to collect.
We don't have any, like if the customer asks for some sample or something, we don't have anything to provide them.
Yeah, we don't have anything like that, which is not given by SAP also. But usually when you use this term called as brand guidelines, they will understand, they will, be able to give it to you. But just to give them more information, you can tell them there are a few elements that I need, which is fonts, colors, and also any specific images that you want to use. And they will understand and they will be able to share it with you. And there are certain scenarios in which a customer will not be able to give you in a specific document, but they will give it to you in bits and pieces. Like they will say that this is the font that you are going to use, and this is the color that you're going to use in a specific document. But usually most of the companies, at least a mid-size, like 500,000 employee company, will have a couple of documents with them, either through their IT department, or maybe it might be outsourced to some other company, like who takes care of the design. Okay. So once you see this document, you'll understand what are the things that are available here. So these are the primary colors that they want to use: the blue, gray, and orange. Okay. And everything has RGB or a hexa code that you have it already. So do we understand about hexa codes? Like, have you heard about it any time before on how do you pick up the exact color code? Any of you in your experience, or maybe somewhere, have you heard about it or seen it? No problem. So what does a hexa code mean? First of all, we will give an overview. All right. So every color that you see, okay, this is also applicable when we are working on MS Paint as well. Okay. Every color that you are going to see it in internet will have a code attached to it. Okay, color codes like this. Okay, so this is the box which you might have seen maybe in a couple of social media sites as well. Okay, social networking sites as well. And you might also have seen in designing tools, or maybe when we are trying to edit an image in our own fonts, or maybe using MS Paint, you might see these colors, right? So if I click on this thing somewhere here, so this becomes my code, okay? And these are the RGB colors. So every color is differentiated like this, RGB, okay? Which is the number given, and has also a hexa code. Why it is called hexa? Because, it's just a code which is having 6 alphanumeric code, okay? So hence it is called as a code. So if you want to get the exact color to be printed on maybe a t-shirt or an invitation card, or in case if you want to get the paint done in the house as well, you're going to always talk about this using the codes. So even if you have seen, like one of the brochure or the pamphlet which is collected during our house construction for the painting, for example, they're also going to mention these codes to have the exact color. Because for me, this is also red, this is also red, and this is also red. But which red do you want? All right. This is one of the example. Now let's go to green, for example. Okay, so this is dark green. This is some light and grayish green. So this is black mix green, and this is also green. How do I get the exact codes? So this is one of the websites like this. There are hundreds of websites which will give you the hexa codes. So what the customer would have done is they will put everything together and give you this code. Okay. So this 003C71. So if I copy this code and put it over here, okay. So if I want to get that particular code, okay, select, there's some space. If I want to just pick up that one. So this is the color. Okay. So this hexa code is exactly this one. And it's giving you some shades out of it. But if I want to pick up the exact one, this is the color. Okay. Now, instead of that, I will do like this. RGB is 0, 60, and 113. So this is the exact color that they have given. Or I can also do it here. Okay. So if I put this 0, 60, 113, you got this already. Okay, the one which I was looking for, this one. So now if I want to get this code, I go here and put it like this, and I got this. Okay. And this color, the orange, I put it here and I got it. So these are the exact color codes that I want to use. Okay. So this will be given by the customer. So next, the secondary colors. Okay. They would have given it in RGB, hexa, or whatever. Okay. So end of the day, our goal is to collect the color codes exactly that they want to use because it should match their corporate website. So likewise, we have the fonts given. Okay. So the fonts which is given, the name of the font is Gotham font. Okay. So that is a font name. It might be a standard font or a custom font. Some of the customers will also pay for certain fonts to be using in the system, where they can have the font provider, and it has to be provided in a specific format.